Of course, this is not a meetup today, and this is sort of an expedition. That's what I understood, an expedition to the famous mountains or mountain of data. And so, without further ado, please welcome your host, the Vice President, Data Governance, Architecture and Analytics, Susan Wegner.
Okay. Just very briefly, because we are time is running. Welcome all of you. I'm really happy that we have all of you here, and I'm excited to have the first meetup today. And now I'll hand it over to Daniel again.
Right. I think you brought the mountain, right? Let's have a look at this mountain I talked about before.
So probably you're wondering a little bit what is the mountain all about, and it's a little bit, I like to hike, and so we were thinking, what is really data all about? And to really look at some kind of mountains, you have the data on top, and to really have the business impact. And now, if you look at that mountain, if you have it from one side, it has this perspective. If you now go to the next side, you have this perspective. And if you want to go to the third side, you have this perspective. So if I now look from the top, I have different paths going to that mountains. And as you can imagine, if you ever go only for a Sunday walk or really go into mountains, not every path is the optimal one. And you need really the science how to climb the mountain. So just have here different parts. So for example, part A, they will not reach the mountain at all. They started and then they are stuck in between because they had no guidance at all. If we go to B, they're a little bit better. They were able to really go to the top. They reached it, but they have a lot of effort. If you go to C, this is the optimal path. You have some sign there, and if you look at that, if you only look from the top of the mountain, you really see what is the optimal path.
Okay, but this comes from like the Reinhold Messner of data mountaineering, right? You have been doing this for long years.
Yes.
You have a very advanced and great team. So how do the people that normally want to climb a mountain, like all these engineers with their algorithms and special problems and goals and goals of their bosses, how do they normally approach climbing that mountain?
Yeah, that's in every department a little bit different, but as you know, data is one of the major topics. So everyone wants to start. They do something. They do looking around for tools. Then they're implementing that. Then they think, oh, we need a data lake. We have a guidance, but this guidance has still some like. In German, I would say gray zone in between. So everyone is taking what we could find, but there is no guidance. And that's the reason why we have a lot of cases, a lot of products running, but it costs us, like in A, some are disappearing. We already have some examples there, some coming to the top, but it takes them a lot of effort because they don't know what is really the optimal path there.
Okay, so like a layman like me, I would think like getting to the summit at all, like not ending up somewhere like Team A, right in the middle, base camp number 3,
Exactly.
and then they have to return. Like, but making it to the top is success, and this is like the whole secret of success. But you seem to think differently.
Yeah, because if you think about that, you have a team. And you really have different paths, and if you spend so much effort to really climbing the mountain,
right,
it's really a lot you spend there. And the other thing is, if you look at Team B, they are not able to share their things because everything is different and they're taking a complete other path. So what you do, if you look at a company, you are inventing, in German I would say, inventing the wheel again and again because they don't know from each other.
Right, okay. This might have happened at Deutsche Telekom, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that at other big companies it surely happens from time to time. So this makes total sense to me, but I know that you also brought like a very practical example where this works.
So what I have here, I forgot to put it on, like from the percentage, 100% effort, then there's 80% and 60%. So you need the 360 view from the top. What else you need is really to have the 360 view of the data. Not only that, and the example I brought with me is an example from our call center, because if our customers are calling, asking for bills or for something else, whatever, the call agents normally would like to have really a complete 360 customer view of the customer. And I brought the example here from one of our projects within Germany. If you look at that and the customer would call and you would only see, for example, like the current things, what the customer has, that's already sometimes a lot, you would see only part of the really customer product, because the customer has a lot of mobile, fixed and so on, but you would probably miss that the customer has a daughter and wouldn't see the overall picture. For that, it's really essential to have the complete overview of data for the customer, so that when a customer calls, the call agent can give really the best next action concerning all the data we have from the customer at the moment.
So that means there might be this spooky moment when I realize this guy knows a lot about my family, but then I also benefit from it because he has like special offers for me, or?
Yes, we always asked for the opt-in of the customer.
Right.
So all the data we have, we really ask the customer about, and the other part is that we have a project and that we will launch in some of our countries where the customer has an overview what kind of data we have from the customer and really can see what we have.
Okay, but the idea behind that is like, if you know a lot about me, then you can sell me better products or tell me that I have like an old contract that has to be renewed, or?
Yeah, it's more customer experience,
Right.
because it's a benefit for the customer. Because if I know only part of that,
Right.
I would probably sell you a different product. If I see the complete household, it's for you
Right.
better if we know a lot, because that it's a benefit for
Right.
you.
And an actual swear to God plug. They did this with me. I now have a better contract, but I didn't know that you were behind all this. Like that was a couple of months ago. Okay, so. I already said, like, you're the Reinhold Messner of data mountaineering, but what is the chief data officer in general? Is he like the Sherpa getting me on top? Is he the mountain rescue service? Is he a meteorologist who tells me like how everything works? What is he?
It is really the guidance. So I have to some answers on that slide with me. It's really I don't think it's Rainer Messner, because he wouldn't lead. In a way, yes, but he is climbing again. But really someone who gives the part,
Right.
who is giving the signs, who show with it's the optimal path. Because if you look at the company, all the cases are done by the commercial business unit. We help, and with that one, I will come to that later on. But really given the guidance coming from an all-over company view, what is the best, not for every detail,
Right.
but so that we can scale and that we have an overall data management.
Mm-hmm.
And the mission I have on the next slide. No?
Oh, that's you.
So it's really that the CDO is giving really the path, showing all our stakeholders within the company what is the optimal path, how giving guidance about tools, methodology, governance, cases, and so on.
And I mean, this is mission statement. This sounds so like we look into the future, but you have been doing this for some years, and you have accomplished like a lot. So maybe this is the time to brag now a bit, to show us what you've done.
So what we have here is, and I'm coming to some of the examples later on, what we have is data analytics and enablers. So what we are doing is that we are helping our business units to really implement cases within our countries. And what we are doing there is really harmonize use cases. I will have the example later on to have a deep dive. We have the data architecture and model, and that's more the ground because the data engineering part, as I mentioned, takes you normally 80% of the time. So we started a data model within DT, and we proposed a data platform for that. What we have in data governance, so we have a data governance blueprint for DT, and now implementing use case by use case in different of our countries. So it's in Germany, in Croatia, in Austria. I forgot Macedonia. Macedonia. And we have concerning like the skills and culture. We have a community within DT to really exchange things, to see what the roadmaps of the different countries are. And we are initiating once a year what we call a big data day to really have the exchange between the different communities. We have moreover later on like our CDO portal to giving really help to the different business units and have it more as a self-service portal.
Right, I know that the technical deep dive is now very close at hand, and this is the part where I will probably not have any good questions anymore. Maybe some, I don't know, but the specialists in the audience are absolutely invited to ask their special technical detailed questions later on. But I know like this next slide is probably my favorite one, if I remember it correctly, right? It's the motto one? Yeah, sharing is caring. So, like, this is the idea behind many things that we will see now. It's quite unusual for a company as big as Deutsche Telekom, right? Because normally in big companies it's like my department versus your department. Sharing is not exactly in the heart of the whole company experience, right?
Yeah, but if you look at the topic and if you see, if we want to really go deeper into artificial intelligence. This is an enabling topic, like data is an enabling topic. You can only really scale if you share information, because if you have it only in one department, you will have some cases, right, but you wouldn't have such a big business impact than if you really have sharing it all over the company. And that sharing means data sharing, tool sharing, model sharing, and business experience sharing.
Okay. I think now we are all ready for the deep dive.
Yeah, but I will make it very, very briefly, because I mentioned a little bit and you can still ask questions. So what I said here is that for the 100%, like 80% is more the data engineering and 20% is normally the data modeling. And we should really have it the other way around. Because the business impact is on the 20% data modeling. So what we are working on, and the main thing here is really about the savings. So we started, and I will come to the concrete cases later on, with these 5 things. We started with a common data model, to have one model within DT, to look at how we access data, how we have data privacy in there. We have a sandbox environment with tools and stuff like that, and as you can imagine, a priority list, which are our biggest use cases. From the status where we are right now, we are not in everything at the end. We are just starting. We already have a saving there of 40%. Our estimation is that we will have 60% if we have only these things already implemented. And coming to a little bit more, not so much into the detail, what we have right now, we have different data lakes within DT. This is just one example with different data sources, and for every case we use another data model, not everywhere. Sometimes you using a schema, but within the data lake is completely different, and technology and commercial, they sometimes really like to have different data models. And the application that are based on these data models, as you can imagine, are completely different, even though from a business and topic point of view they are the same. So we have different implementation in different countries, even though I always said the POC is sometimes green, then it's yellow, and then it's something in between, but we are not sharing, we're implementing again because we don't have the common base. So that's basically the idea, that we have a common model within DT for all our cases, that we have what we call a data platform to access the data, to have really a data repository, and that we have something where you can really look at data, access data. And just very, very briefly, and that's already an example from one of our countries. We started there with 3 cases, and what we experienced there, we used the data model, implemented it within the NATCO. For the first case, we must admit that we had a little bit more effort. For the second case, we already had only 82% effort, and for the third case, we have only 75% effort. We are now starting the 4th case, and I just heard the numbers that we can reuse the things we already implemented. Over 60% of the stuff we already are doing. So even for the first cases, we really have a huge saving here. And the next one is, that is within the country. If you now look at a case and you want to transfer it from one country to another, and this is again experience from our current case. So we implemented it in one country. So you need what we call here initial alignment with T-data model. So you need something in the country, in the physical layer to implement. And you have the case, the implementation of the case. So if you now want to transfer it from one country to the other, you still need the effort in country 2, but you can take the algorithm, the use case from one country to another, and that gives you a saving of 30%. That's what we're actually doing with one of the cases where this estimation is coming from, where we are really transferring it to 3 different countries. Very briefly. And so what we did, we have a blueprint, we have a tool, a self-service tool where everyone can go and look at it. Whoever is interested can come to me later on and we can discuss about. And the second one, very, very briefly, it's all about how to access data. So what we experienced in the finance department, it took them 6 months to really find data for their case. It was a long time because the sharing of data was not so the topic. And within our own experience in one country, so one data scientist told me, yeah, we went there, then we had to go to IT, to the first person, we got an Excel, then we had to go to the next person to get another Excel. And then we went to the other person, have another Excel. And then we had only Excel, and we had to look at the data. We had no clue what kind of data. We had no data quality and stuff like that. And that's the reason I describe it here a little bit, why we said, okay, we need something like a data platform where we really can access the data all over the company, even though in our different countries, we have different kind of implementation of the data lake. So that is what we call a data platform, very, very briefly. And the last one, and that's probably more tangible, it's how do we have everything together, because I had already the priorities we have, and what we are working on is really to have something where all the stuff, the team is not big, as a self-service portal. So what we are thinking, we already have a mock-up here, and this is just one example from a business perspective to have an overview over the use cases, what kind of effect the use cases has, and really this is supposed to be the view of a business owner, how far the business owner is with everything. And if you go down, you have some additional information. And the idea here is, and I'm coming to the next one, is not only to have the business view, but have additionally the data scientist view, so that you're going there, you find the case, you find the code, you can really play around with the code, test it for the business side, see the business impact, and integrate what I mentioned before, the data model in there, all the cases, and really like putting case by case in there, so that we have really the sharing within the company.
So, if I do not get this wrong, this is something like an app store for data models that you can try out?
Yeah, I call it sometimes shopping window of CEO.
Yeah, nice.
Exactly. And that's the reason why we mentioned only some stuff here. So we are really developing based on all the infos, all the requests we are getting from our stakeholders, designing it step by step, starting with really the data model and the use cases and the platform.
Right. I do have, astonishingly, I do have one or two questions, but if you have one or two questions, I would come to you first with a mic, so you're not quieter than we are. Reprogram. Oh yeah, thank you.
So hello from me. I would like to know how we can expand on this. For example, if you go into scikit-learn, you can see that there is a clustering, classification, whatever, and there is code inside. So can we do the same with this, but also functions that people can use? And
yeah, we're starting really with the project. Because right now we really have to set it up, and we really have to see how it is working. But later on we will really go to function. This is more effort, and if you look around in the industry, it's always like a copy with pride, so it's not everything invented from ourselves. But if you look what other telcos are doing, they are really doing exactly this thing, and depending what kind of company you are, you have already one data lake with data models, and there you have really the cases sharing. But in future, we will really have smaller modules. I know it's a lot of effort to have the smaller modules in there, brings more value, but more effort really to implement from the beginning. That's the reason why we thought, okay, we start with the cases. Wherever we get a request, then we can go into more details and really have modules in there.
As I understand it, this is also, first you create a way how these things to the layman can be shared.
Yeah,
and if it works and everybody participates, then other things the gentleman would like to share would be implemented. The granularity could become finer, or whatever you like, basically.
And
right?
that's the reason why we always said we have the mock-up here, but that's for discussion, and we're really starting with the demand we have from our stakeholders, what we have, and we have different stakeholders. We have the commercial, the technology, and we have the senior management.
Right.
So a lot there really to how we go ahead.
Still a lot of discussions and thinking going on. How about questions? If not, I have yeah, sure. There you go.
How is it, or is it meant for the people who generate the data? So how much will change for them, because then they have to fulfill some standardization?
So for the data generation, looking at the data model in the first step, it's no difference. The aspect is there more the data quality, but that's another one. There you have to see it from end to end. What we are right now doing there is that we are going use case by use case, because it makes no sense to look at the quality for all kind of data, but only for the cases we are really working on. For the data scientists looking at the data, it shouldn't be more effort in future, because you have to choose a data model anyway. So if you go for a data model, you can choose what you like. I agree, probably you need a little bit of effort because you're not so used in the first step to that model, but we have the model and then we have the data platform, so you have really the access to the data, see the data all over the company and have it really harmonized, modeled. So it shouldn't, for the data production, it shouldn't be another effort. It needs a little bit of guidance for the data scientists, probably for the first two cases, but then they should really use it, and at the beginning we help.
Thank you. Here's another question.
Hello, my name is Birgit Bayer. I'm wondering, how do you handle offline data? Like when I go into a shop, or all the offline data that can be collected, and the experience that I have, so that you can create this 360 view.
Yeah. So just to say, if you know the GDPR and everything we have, so we only use data concerning GDPR. So everything we are allowed to have, and only things we really have in our systems at the moment. And I tell you, we already have not from the data side, but Deutsche Telekom has a long history. Some systems we are really putting together to have this 360 customer dialogue. So in future, we will integrate more and more what we have currently in the IT systems. They are still silos and we are not connecting, and that's our first step. And if we want to really have that data from you, we need really an opt-in from you to have that data.
There you go.
Just one quick additional question. So what I understood so far is that you are right now in the step of harmonization of data,
Yeah.
and building up a platform to access this data, and creating a dashboard to really read out those data. But what will be then the next step if you look at things like machine learning, etc. pp?
So AI is a big topic within DT. Why I'm concentrating on that so much is we had team offsite in the morning, and I had there a slide from our strategy department. And the basic, because if you want to go into AI, and I'm talking more about the cognition, not about like a metal robot, really the deep learning, is really you need data, and you really need access to the data. You need to have data quality and stuff like that. So for me, that's the first step, and that's the reason why we're working on that. Looking into the cases, we have different cases, and depending on the data we have or we can get from somewhere, and looking at the problems we have, we will decide in future what is the right approach to do. If we are just have old-fashioned statistical approaches, or if we go into the learning stuff. The overall thing is that we have, as a telco, two sides. We have one, the customer side, looking at real-time, customer-oriented, customer experience cases, going into that direction, starting with bots. We have Tinker already implemented in Austria. So it's all about customer interaction. And the other one is more about our internal processes, about our network. How are we able in future to have ad hoc personalized services? And there you really need more the deep learning, especially if you have a lot of data and don't want to implement everything by hand.
I think there are 1 or 2 slides left, so we should oh yeah, there is the future mission slide, very important.
It's just like the future where we are going, and that's really, like I mentioned, really the sharing and the in between, and really looking at all our stakeholders and driving the data and the AI topic with NDT.
So yes, thank you very much.
Thank
Susanne,
you.
and we will continue in 20 minutes, I think, with our panel discussion. Thank you.